Hi, my name is Elandria Williams, a longtime member of Tennessee Valley UU Church, and I'm happy to share a poem with you I wrote called We Are Worthy. We are worthy, not because of what we produce, but because of who we are. We are divine bodies of light and darkness. You are not worthy because of what you offer, not because of what is in your mind, not for the support you give others, nor what you give at all. We are worthy and whole just because. In this great turning, in this great pandemic, in this radical readjustment and realignment, we are not disposable, we are needed. We are the very people that have withstood everything that has been thrown at us. And as Maya Angelou would say, still I rise. We arise from the pain. We rise from the grief. We rise from the limits people put on us and the limits we place on ourselves. We rise to be the children and the ancestors. We rise to be our true selves in relationship to our families and communities, recognizing our liberating and whole selves, honoring them and others as we strive for abundant communities, abundant lives, abundant relationships, and abundant values and cultural manifestations. You are worthiness personified. I, you, and we are worthy and desire a life where we are not fighting for our very existence. Imagine what we create if we were not always in the struggle. Imagine what we could envision if we were just allowed and just let be to go there. So tired of always having to resist, to fight, demanding, and pushing. To everyone that has the courage, the power, the ability to co-create what we want and need while rooting in what we cannot lose and who we are. You are the visionary. You are the hope. You are our ancestors' dreams. No, you might not ever end up on a list somewhere, but you are on a list in someone's heart and mind. And it's how you move in the world so people can see by example. You are the embodiment of what we need. The embodiment not of productivity, but the embodiment of radical love, care, and sanctuary. It's time. Embodiment time. Embodiment. Living one's values out loud. Let me every day live my values out loud. Let us every day live our values out loud. Embodying our values. Not the productivity quotient, beyond productivity, past productivity, true embodiment, life.
So yeah, that's my friend Elandria, who passed away last week. But I think you can start to see where some of my theology comes from. So we grew up together in the Unitarian Universalist congregation in Knoxville, Tennessee. Yeah, we are worthy. You know, recently, a friend gifted James and I with a large number of children's books. Among them were some of the Golden Books series, depicting some fairly traditional interpretations of Bible stories. And a few nights ago, my child pulled out the story of David and Goliath. I was not thrilled to read this story to them, as the God who takes sides in battle is just about my least favorite Old Testament God. But in the story, you may know, the Israelites attempt to battle the Philistines who do not worship the one true God. And the Philistines put forth a single champion, one who has trained for battle all his life, a behemoth who is larger and better armored than any other fighter on either side. For some reason, the Israelites fully buy into this concept that until they vanquish this one giant, mano a mano, they cannot gain religious freedom. Goliath announces that the Israelites must offer up a single champion who can vanquish him, or else they will all remain in a perpetual stalemate. Well, the Israelites send up warrior after warrior to battle this great champion, Goliath, and for 40 straight days, each man they send up loses to him again and again. Sometimes in the Old Testament, 40 days is like the passage of time, like the general passing of time. Meanwhile, down the road in Bethlehem, a young shepherd follows his father's instruction to go bring bread and supplies to his older brothers who are on the front lines of this standoff with the Philistines. His name is David, and he has this experience of fighting off various large beasts to protect his flock of sheep. And so when he goes to the front lines of the battle and he sees Goliath, he feels he can use similar tactics of nimble skill to vanquish him, similar to what he uses for bears who attack his sheep. And in addition to his life experience, he feels confident God is with him. Indeed, David takes 5 smooth stones, creates a rudimentary slingshot, and zaps Goliath in the head, killing him instantly. Now, as I've said, I have some issues with this text. And I know, in some ways, many of us have been feeling like David for quite a while, small and outmatched, up against a behemoth, one who trained his whole life for battle, using tactics like of creating chaos, inciting mistrust in the media, lying so often and so fast the truth will appear absurd or biased, being extraordinarily cruel when we expect decorum, dealing in hyperbolic name-calling and schoolyard bullying tactics, dismantling trusted institutions, and perhaps worst of all, removing decency from the public discourse. It was difficult to watch the debates with Joe Biden because we wondered if Biden is up to the task of taking down a Goliath. But why get drawn into the narrative that we have to send in a single champion to take down an oppressor? This is one deep frustration I have with our national politics, that we have come to rely on a narrative of our champion to go mano a mano against the other side's champion. But the truth is, governments are not created nor dismantled by one singular person. And one champion cannot revive or lead a single movement. So rather than feeling like David, I think we have been more like the Israelites, buying into Goliath's narrative, waiting in a stalemate for our perfect hero. So, as I said earlier, this was a week where the better angels of my nature have indeed been holding on by a thread. And so I do stay focused on the 200,000 plus people whose names I do not know, but who deserved better. I stay focused also on my deepest religious principles. And if you belong to a Unitarian Universalist congregation, then you ascribe to our 7 principles. The 7 principles which I'm sure you all have memorized, or at least have written, tattooed right on the palm of your hands at all times to refer to. So I'm sure you will recognize our 6th principle, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. I'll say it once again, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. These words keep me grounded, that when we say we are building a new way together, when we sing peace and freedom is our cry, we mean we still lift up this goal of world community, one of peace, one of liberty, and one of justice. And I have a life of memories of crying out for peace and freedom. I remember going with my UU church in Chicago to protest the first Iraq War in 1990. I was 10 years old when my dad held me on his shoulders, and I looked out into the ocean of people who had gathered at the State of Illinois building inside the Loop in downtown Chicago. And I noticed that the first concentric circle of people gathered around us were members of my church. I wasn't scared of all the police who were trying to close us in, because I knew that if I were separated from my parents, that my RE teachers over there would help me find them, or my parents' friends in the congregation would know where they would be, or would help me get to safety. And I remember every single August 6th, living in Knoxville, Tennessee, well, that was the day when all the area UU churches would drive over to the Y-12 nuclear plant in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, that place where they enriched uranium for the Manhattan Project. And though the nuclear facility, considered the birthplace of the atomic bomb, also supplied jobs and an economy for Oak Ridge, including for some church members. Well, those same folks often attended the annual protest on August 6th. We would hang out at the fence surrounding the nuclear facility. At the doorway, we would hang 1,000 paper cranes we had created together over the summer. And we would hang colorful strips of fabric where we had written the names of people who had died in Nagasaki and Hiroshima on that day, August 6th in 1945. That is the Unitarian Universalism that raised me. One where people who were employed by the Y-12 nuclear plant would also attend the protest of the atomic bomb with their congregation. Each summer, we would create a work of living art at the entrance to that nuclear energy facility, and at the end of the day, the cops or someone else would systematically dismantle our art installation, painstakingly untying the strips of colored cloth, unhooking the paper cranes with as much care as we took to mount our work earlier that morning. And they still go each year, even now, facing a Goliath with no known weaknesses, no cracks in the mortar, though the Catholic nuns and UU activists alike have spent time in federal prison for their acts of civil disobedience at the plant. Yet each summer, we fold our origami into patterns of the crane. We write the names we cannot always pronounce on pastel-colored strips of cloth. Each year we cry peace, and we feel God or Spirit is with us cheering us on against the war machine that never stops. For the next month, we must do all that we can do. We know the false notion that there is one David, and that he alone will bring victory with a single, well-directed act. We know that is not true. We need all of us to bring about change. We need all of us to bring franchisement, to bring the vote to people out there in rural Georgia, where their home is surrounded by people who want to fight them. People who are scared of contracting COVID-19 at the polls. People who cannot afford to take time to wait online to vote. People who do not have a working vehicle, who are feeling beaten down and exhausted, who have been told by their president that their vote won't matter anyway. We need all of us to build a new way together. It is our highest UU value to hold up that goal of world community. And the microcosm of that world is something we create and find here at UUCA. Yeah, maybe we are family. And like a family, we are figuring out how to live, how to love through differences, through being misunderstood, through even hurting each other, through loss and heartbreak, and now distance. We don't know when we will reach that goal of world community where peace, freedom, and justice reign. We only know we can grasp at it in small moments, in little victories along a very, very long road to freedom. And every UU congregation I have ever been a part of has a nuclear disarmament task force or study group or working group. And I remember my last congregation voicing some frustration about this group. Like, really? I mean, is world peace still the thing we're aiming for? I mean, hasn't that ship kind of sailed? But if you've ever talked to someone who has spent their life learning and working for nuclear disarmament, I am telling you, it is a humbling experience. They will sit back and let you finish your devil's advocacy before saying, if you're not busy next Friday night, we're showing a video about Chernobyl and the deadly effects of nuclear warfare. Here's a flyer. I hope you can come. Or they'll let you know about the upcoming rally for peace at City Hall next month. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without these, this world will die. Sometimes I think what this is really saying is that without us crying out for peace and freedom, this world will die. It is the crying out for peace and freedom that must persist. So I know that on November 4th and every day after, while I don't know what will happen, I know we will continue our cry and our work for peace and freedom. We will continue to work for a world community where everyone has access to peace, to liberty, to justice. Hear our cry. The goal of injustice is to breed passivity, to make us believe that things happen to us, that events happen to us, that policies happen to us. To counteract this, we need to stay in touch with our sense of personal power. One goal of that is to see ourselves as people who create, whether it's cooking a meal, whether it's singing a song together, knitting a hat, whether it's making a sign, making prayer flags, and hanging them beautifully on your porch so all know your prayer for peace going out on the wind. We are more than just consumers. Our humanity must be affirmed. This is the radical act of creation. And this is one reason why I wanted Laura Beth to talk to us about prayer flags, because it connects us to that act of civil disobedience, of artful defiance every August 6th with the UUs at the Y12 plant. It connects us to Sadako and 1,000 paper cranes, the story of a girl from Nagasaki who developed leukemia as a result of atomic radiation. She wanted to make 1,000 paper cranes for peace, but she died before she could finish her work. And so her community fulfilled her work beyond her death. And like Sadako, Elandria Williams is a true Unitarian Universalist activist and a member of our great family of All Souls. So we have to keep making the world that Elandria was building. God, I would marvel at how Elandria could speak so powerfully about community-based economics, building our world community for peace and freedom, talking about it in rooms where she was the only voice for a new economy, for communalism, collectivism. No one else would be thinking on this level, no matter. Elandria's was a voice crying out for peace and freedom. And it is strange to say this, but Elandria's voice rings louder in my ears today than ever before, even when they were sitting right next to me. That we don't need one champion. We are all a part of the movement that will bring about this world community. So, we will take up Elandria's work. Whether you use your creative spirit to make peace flags or to set your hands to another intention to bring the vote to someone who is struggling to make their voice heard, then I want you to hear that it is time now. Like Elandria tells us, it is embodiment time. Living one's values out loud. Let me every day live my values out loud. Let us every day live our values out loud, embodying our values, not the productivity quotient. Beyond productivity, true embodiment. Life. Amen. May it be so.